But now I think we're realizing, if you look at the astrology, that the humanity is what is most important. So discussing the future of humanity as we're entering the Aquarian age is perfectly appropriate that you have that concern, because I think that should, looking at it this way, be our number one concern. And that can be shown through acts of kindness, through acts of compassion, through loving your neighbor, instigating that golden rule. You know, how do you want to be treated? And bring that to other people. That is what religion has taught us for the last 2,000 years. And I like to think we don't forget our lessons, but we build on them. And so we're not leaving all of that behind. We now understand what religion taught us. Every religion has the golden rule in it, to treat others as you would like to be treated. We should know that lesson by now. And this is what we bring into the Aquarian energies. And I think many, 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 many of us are completely, wholly ready for this.
Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence. And, well, let me ask you this question. How can we peer into the future of humanity? Now, some people might suggest that we use the mantic arts, stuff like I Ching, tarot cards. They may be helpful. But for the longer term, astrology with all its varied perspectives may help us more. And if you have doubts and concerns about astrology and the value of it, please put them aside for now, because our guest today is so knowledgeable about astrology, and she's very practical. I know her reasonably well, and she is practical. She takes care of business. So astrology, practical future of humanity. So put aside any concerns you have about astrology for the next hour and listen to the perspective of a woman well versed in its nuances. Karen Newell is an author and specialist in personal development with a diverse body of work that rests upon the foundation of spiritually transformative experiences. She is an innovator in the emerging field of brain entrainment, audio meditation. Karen empowers others in their journeys of self-discovery by demonstrating how to connect to inner guidance, achieve inspiration, improve wellness, and develop intuition from a heart-centered consciousness. She is co-founder of Sacred Acoustics and co-author with Evan Alexander of Living in a Mindful Universe. Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence once again, Karen.
Hello, Bernie. It's great to be here today.
It's great to be with you, and it's so much fun talking with you other times. And this time, I'm leading with a question. How can astrology help us make some idea about the future of humanity?
It's a big question. And you want astrology to answer that. Well, I think I'll start by just demonstrating something that you said about me today, which was that I am very practical. And when you look at my personal astrology chart, my sun sign is Sagittarius, but my rising sun is Virgo. And rising signs usually indicate what other people think of you, how you appear to other people. So Virgos are very, very practical. Sagittarians are not, but I appear to be very practical, and it is part of my personality. So thank you for noticing. Virgos can also be very hypercritical, and you know, we're just trying to help. We're all just very helpful.
And also excessively detailed.
Yes, very detailed. Yes, we like our details, but we can keep track of a lot of information. And so that's where in astrology, it can be very useful because there is huge amounts of information. And that's one thing that creates skeptics because they say, oh, there's so much information there. You can cherry pick and choose what fits your mind. And of course, that's a risk with a lot of things, including tarot cards. But you mentioned tarot cards, and they use the same exact archetypes that astrology uses. But with tarot cards, it's all just chance in that moment. Like with I Ching, you just draw a card in that moment and what's happening. With astrology, it's a whole system. There's a whole map in the sky. It's like a clock because these planets are moving around the sun in a very predictable fashion. And as they move around the sun, they appear to have influences. I don't know if it's an influence or a synchronicity, a coincidence that certain things are happening on planet Earth when planets are in particular alignment. So you can just think of it as a wonderful synchronicity, a timekeeper of sorts. It doesn't have to be thought of as an influence at all, but that cycles continue in certain patterns, and our planets are keeping track of that. And my biggest source of knowledge about how planets are affecting Earth and what's going on Earth is in Rick Tarnas's book. I'll hold it up because I showed Bernie. Cosmos and Psyche, who I understand might be a future guest of Bernie's. You won't want to miss this discussion because he knows this stuff in depth. But he put together this very interesting book where he looked at all of Western history. He focused on Western history, not Eastern history and other history, but Western history. And he saw where were the planets when certain things happened, like the Renaissance or world wars, conflict or advancement. And he found patterns. And so when certain planetary alignments are going on, we're having wonderful creative scientific discoveries. When other planetary alignments are going on, we might be having big challenges with authority or things like that. And so when he lined all this up, it's really amazing how, especially the outer planets, the planets that take longer to move around the Earth, seem to create these patterns of things that happen culturally to us here on Earth, at least in the Western world. And that was huge for me because I was used to looking at it in a personal level. And when you look at it at this larger level, it brings a whole other level of understanding of how it all works.
It really does. And that book is remarkable in the amount of detail and the correlations that he finds. Now, you slipped in a suggestion that there's a causal relationship between what goes on up there and what happens down here. And I can't help but think that too, because even if it is synchronicity, which it is, it's a form of synchronicity in the fact that the planet correlations with what goes on down here are there. But we don't know why. And so acausal, or we don't understand the explanation, still doesn't mean there isn't an explanation. And I've always been like, when I first learned about astrology, is like you pop out of the womb, and then the stuff that's around you kind of gets planted in your brain and your mind, and that programs you for the rest of your life, just like other environmental things do. So how do you think about astrology and the explanation?
Well, astrology is based on time and space. So you can think of it scientifically. At a certain time, in a certain location on Earth, that's what your chart is created from. And so what it does, what in my understanding is it creates a template of kind of expectations or energies that are present in your life. But within that template of your birth chart, your natal chart, they call it, you have choices. You have free will. You can resist influences. You can challenge influences. You can completely ignore them. And it's up to you what you do with that information. It's not meant to be your destiny. Within that template, we call it that blueprint, you can do constant renovations. You can change things, but you have a certain kind of personality that you're working with. And having that information is so helpful because you know your foibles. Like me, I'm practical. Well, this can be annoying to some people. So you have this awareness of who you are, and it can be really helpful. And all of us have annoying qualities and wonderful qualities. That's the first thing we need to understand. And it's just how we interact with each other. One thing about my personal chart that fascinated me is I have so everyone in my life practically who I'm close to has some kind of Scorpio energy in them. And Scorpio, my mother, my daughter, my brother, my best friend, my business partner, all of these people. And I'm not a Scorpio. Scorpio is very deep. Scorpio wants is secretive, but they're also very deep. They're not shallow when they talk about things. And in my chart, my third house, and if you don't know astrology, it doesn't matter because I'll explain what it means. My third house is in Scorpio, and that third house is how you interact with people. And so I found that really the best way I interact with people is on a deep level. It's hard for me to be surface level with people. And so it might seem like at a party that I'm not really interacting, having small talk, but I will get in a corner with someone and have a really deep conversation. So that's how those kinds of things can be interpreted. And it's all about interpretation because someone else who has Scorpio in their third house might have a slightly different way of that manifesting because of all the other influences that are going on. We are very unique despite these kind of 12 archetypes that have the ability to define who we are.
Yeah, well said. Now, one time I was in an apartment in San Francisco. There were three Scorpios in that apartment, and I'm a Pisces, so it's kind of sensitive. So
Uh-oh.
yeah, uh-oh. So
Oh,
it's right, uh-oh. So for me, it was like three fire hydrants squirting out a lot of intense water, and I got out of there. It was
yeah.
just too much for me. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's another version of the depth. It's also highly intense. And
Intense. Yes.
intense is what is where I went with it as well. And it's a water sign, and we can go through some of those as well as a Pisces is. But now that we've done a bit of discussion of personal astrology, which of course we could go on for a long time doing, but
I do want to say one more thing about personal, because
please.
this comes from Rick Tarnas himself, and I believe it's in this book, Cosmos and Psyche. Although wrote another book, about the Western mind,
Yeah,
also fabulous. Yes, I've read that book as well. But I think it was in this one. He works with people at Esalen in California who is very concerned with helping people with their personal development. They've been there for many years. I know there was a mudslide, not sure of their current status, but he pointed out that they did studies at Esalen where they did people's individual personal charts, and they found that certain alignments were going on when people had their deepest personal breakthroughs. So it's pretty interesting that you might be able to plan going on a silent retreat or some kind of retreat when you have a certain alignment, because you might be more open to, more vulnerable maybe to that transformative potential. So that was really fascinating to me. Just wanted to pop that in there.
Well,
But let's move on to humanity.
that's good. I mean, we talk about timing is everything, uh,
Yeah.
and what you're doing with saying that is that we can program our timing for when is the best time for something to happen, and particularly a spiritually or psychological, psychospiritual transformation that the astrology can suggest. So,
Yeah,
uh,
and I don't remember the exact alignment, but it had to be do with the moon because that's your personal
no,
emotion.
no.
Neptune, your spiritual growth. So something like that. Yeah.
Well, we don't have to get into that depth here,
Yeah.
but that moon is always shifting us
Yeah.
around. I mean, it's the change thing, but we can get in, we can leave that, and let's see if let's now elevate ourselves to thinking about humanity as a collective human organism, as a thing like us itself, made up of all of us, and that we are trampling on our environment here. We're messing up, destroying our habitat, which is not a good way to go about doing things because you need to have the habitat, and that looks like a suicidal trajectory to me. So, so how can astrology help us understand humanity and what we are doing and the direction in which it appears we're going? And as you've mentioned, the choices that we can make to not go into what looks like a suicidal trajectory to me.
Yeah. So this is interesting. I want to kind of start with, if you don't mind, the Pluto return that happens to every country when they get to be 250 years old. And that's because Pluto takes 250 years to go around the sun. And so they have 250-year cycles. And so the United States is in a Pluto return right now. And I don't know if your listeners are mostly in the United States, but I assume they're all English speakers and accustomed to United States issues. And because we do kind of have a role that obviously that we play in the world that's influential, it's important to pay attention, not to put us first. I want to be careful there. But the United States is going through that Pluto return. And so let me tell you a little bit about Pluto. Pluto is the planet of death. And there's also a tarot card called Death. But in this way of thinking, death is not the end. Death is complete and utter transformation, change. And so I used to be afraid, oh, the death card, someone's going to die. No, transformation. And that's what Pluto energy is. And so when a country returns to the spot that Pluto was when they were born, they go through incredible transformation. And we can see the United States going through that right now. It was very helpful to me to see that Rome also went through 2 Pluto returns. And the first Pluto return, very transformative. The second Pluto return, apparently, that's when Rome fell, my understanding. England has been through a couple, probably more than one, at least 2 Pluto returns. And so it doesn't mean the end of a country. It means a great transformation of a country. And everyone's talking about our bicentennial, our 250-year birthday, and that's what's happening this year. And we see incredible transformation going on. And so in order for transformation to take place, something usually is destroyed. And that can be very uncomfortable when you're in the middle of that process, and you may not understand it until the process is over. And that's what in Cosmos and Psyche, at the end of the book, it's very easy to look back 200 years ago and 2,000 years ago and see what happened, saw all of the kind of aftermath, but we don't have that advantage now. We don't know because we're in the middle of it. And at the end of that book, they're trying to look into the future, which is now the past. Their future went to about 2020. And they were talking about the year 2007, 2008, and they were coming up with predictions. And when you read it after the fact, it's very easy to see where they were right on the money and where, oh no, you could still interpret it this way, but it's really, this is what happened. And so that's where we are now. We're in the middle of a transit. And when you're in the middle of a transit, everything can seem incredibly chaotic. It can seem desperate, it can seem like nothing's going well. And it certainly seems like that to a lot of us when we look around the world. And what an astrologer would say to you, I'm an astrology enthusiast. I would not say I'm an astrologer, but astrologers, when I say that to them, they say, we are right on schedule. And so for me, it really calms me down when I know that these energies come in cycles, that when the destructive energy comes, that means another energy is coming after it of rebuilding. It's kind of like the eye of the storm in the hurricane. Everything's being destroyed, and then there's this calm moment when you're right under the middle of the storm where nothing's going on, everything's still. I've been in those moments before. And then the disruption comes back again to finish you off. And so, being in that eye of the storm can be very helpful because it gives you this perspective that things are chaotic all around you, but there is a calmness. There is a reason to it all. We don't often see that reason, that result, until that chaotic time is over. So we may not know the result of this Pluto return and how it's influencing the entire world right now. I mean, I don't want to get into all the news headlines. Anyone can do that anytime. And you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm referring to all of this chaos, but it's part of what's supposed to be happening right now. That's what gives me comfort. And when I look back at my own life and I see the transits, I had a Pluto, what did I have? I had a Pluto on my Venus in the 7th house or something. And boy, that couple of years was incredibly chaotic in my relationship world. But when it was over, I was thinking, what a relief. Thank goodness I went through that, but now I'm here. And so this is what I hold on to, is that this chaos will eventually turn into something that we can work with, something that we value, and something that makes sense. It might not make sense right now, but when you look at the past, it all makes perfect sense. So I have to think the present one day will make sense in the future.
Well, that's as you mentioned earlier, Karen. It was like we have some modicum, some bit of free will in all this. There are the structures astrology can help us define within which we are limited. From those structures, we have choices that we can make. So, from what I just heard you say, um, there's a kind of helplessness in what I heard from you about the chaos of the Pluto return right now. And I don't believe that. I believe that in the midst of this chaos, we can still look into a potential future that the chaos can permit or encourage us to think about how we might choose a different path from what we've been on. That the chaos provides an opportunity in that kind of flux of everything being crazy. There's a way out that you can see if you can try to imagine it and then find the ways out given the impediments or the structures that we are living within.
Right. So that's a very good point. So if you're not aware of this structure and these cycles, that's when you fall into despair and hopelessness and I can't do anything. I'm a victim of all of this. But
Yes,
you're
yes.
not. You can. Were you going to say more there?
No, no, I'm just agreeing with you.
Okay, yeah.
That.
So we're not victims, we're agents, and
Yes,
we can make decisions. And so knowing that it's a cycle, having this larger perspective helps find what you're talking about, that calm in the storm, finding that perspective, seeing what might be. It's very challenging to get everyone around you on board with this idea. So, yeah.
very challenging indeed. But
Hmm.
there are human beings out there who are more and more interested in being able to not only to continue their own self evolution, which a lot of people get caught up in now. They're just, I'm going to become spiritually evolved, and don't pay attention to what's going on around. It's a For me, it's a spiritual bypassing, but which means not paying attention to what's going on right in front of you, interpersonally, and more than that, politically. But there's also the ability to imagine what else might be there and what else, how we can do this. And we have to do it collectively. We can't do it individually. I mean, each of us can come up with some ideas, but there's a lot of people out there saying, this is the way it must be. Follow what I am doing, and this will be the future for everyone, and you'll be fine. And that is not going to be the way it works. We
No.
have to pay attention to the collective, and the astrology, especially like the cosmos and psyche, and the way you're talking shows us that we must think of ourselves, I think, as a collective organism. And astrology is giving us inhibitions and structure, but also showing us possibilities.
Yes, and I think that this brings me right to, everyone knows that song. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, back in the 60s. Love that song. Who doesn't love that song? And but it has astrology in it when it even says the formation in the lyrics. And so lots of people wonder about this. When does the age of Pisces end and the age of Aquarius begin? They don't know the exact date, but I would say we are in the midst of it now. And Pisces energy is unconditional love, spiritual sensitivity, but it's also the Christian religions, the fish is the Christian religion's symbol. So Jesus, unconditional love, all of this, it fits. That Pisces energy is kind of the last 2,000 years. There's been a huge kind of influential Christian kind of religion. But on the other side of that, opposite is Virgo. Those are the practical we're talking about. Those are the scientists. So I think the last 2,000, every 2,000 years, the influence changes. So the last 2,000 years, you could really see now, looking back, it was this battle between science and religion. And very interesting to look at it that way. So we're moving into Aquarius energy. And lots of people, when they hear about Aquarian energy, they think about Aquarian energy as all of humanity coming together, but it's also technology, It's, agrarian, everyone's equal. And when we hear that, we think, isn't that wonderful? We can all be equal. We can all be, together living in harmony. But Aquarian energy isn't so predictable. That's our human mind trying to interpret it that way. And I've had lots of people ask me, why aren't we living this way? We're in Aquarian energy now. Well, Aquarian energy is also populist energy, right? So populists are electing our governments right now. The not the academic educated people, but the populists. And so that's Aquarian energy. Opposite Aquarius is Leo. So our struggle now, Leo can be thought of as the ego, the one person who only thinks of themselves first. That's kind of Leo energy. It's also very showmanship and gregarious and all kinds of other things. But look what's going on now. The populists in the United States just elected a Leo leader. So I never could have really predicted this. But now that it's happening, I see that the astrology, it's reflected, we can say, in the
Yeah,
astrology. And so
reflected.
this is our 2,000-year struggle. I think that we're entering in this. And anytime there's a change, I think chaos is part of it. And so shifting from Pisces to Aquarius is happening as well right now. There's a bunch of large cycles that are happening that people identify in this sort of 100-year period that we're in the middle of. So lots and lots of change going on. And this shift to Aquarian energy also speaks of high technology, and that we're facing that right now, and how everyone's able, all the little people are able to use AI to create whatever they want at no cost. Very Aquarian energy, but is that good for us? That remains to be seen. So I'm sure there are good qualities, and well,
There's
we'll say
always that.
beneficial and non-beneficial, we'll say qualities in astrology and everything. So
Polarity characterizes life on Earth.
yeah,
That's all. That's what you're describing. Now that you mentioned the shift from Pisces to Aquarius, as I mentioned, I'm a Pisces, and I
yeah,
keep wondering, why am I involved with so many Aquarius people?
yeah.
It's like another one. So it's
It
like
might be your progressed sign is in Aquarius. My progressed sign is in Aquarius right now.
I thought I'm being Aries after.
Yeah, you would be going that way. Yeah, sorry.
But I just like to think that the way I'm thinking about the future of humanity, that I may be a mirror of this transition in trying to be able to be a Pisces, having to deal with Aquarius and trying to manage that transition by seeing what they do versus what I have been. It's just
Yeah,
my way of interpreting what you're saying. But I'd like to see what you think now about the future, that astrology is often used not just to talk about who you are right now, but also to give some idea about what might be happening in your future. And we've done very clearly, and you've been beautifully articulate about the chaos now with the Pluto return and the shift from Pisces to Aquarius. So let's keep thinking about humanity as a collective human organism as one thing, that is also, like, as individuals, being influenced somehow or correlated with the changes in the sky. So what might you be able to tell us about astrology and the future of humanity?
well, I think if we really are entering the age of Aquarius, that we want to focus on the positive qualities of that Aquarian energy and bring those to bear. And that is about caring for all of humanity. It is about all humans are equal, all souls are equal, very egalitarian, very agrarian. I hope those words are correct. And so that's how we need to be thinking, not competitively, but collaboratively. How can we help our neighbors? How can we help? And this is something you can do locally. And you said, you kind of confused me a little bit because you said all of humanity. There are certain people who are interested in moving humanity forward, but all of humanity isn't there yet. But then you said we need all of humanity. And I think you would agree with me. You need a fraction of humanity. Not every single human needs to be on board. They've done studies of meditation where if a certain number of people are meditating, it influences crime in that city. And so I think that percent is something around 5
But
to 7,
it's 3 to 11% is
3
different.
to 11. So
That's
it's only,
different number.
yeah, only about 10% of us.
Well,
If
yeah, let's say a certain percentage. And thank you for correcting me because I fully agree with you.
yes, I
Uh,
knew you did. Yeah.
but I was first trying to say collective human organism because we're all part of this collective human organism. But for the change to take place that we are looking for, a subset of the cells in this collective human organism has to lead the way. A lot of people like to use the the butterfly from the cocoon idea,
Yeah.
and that's not a good one actually because when the caterpillar enters the cocoon, the outcome is determined. You know it's going to be a butterfly, and the chaos inside the cocoon uh, does pre- predicts clearly there's going to be a butterfly, but the chaos we got now does not predict there's going to be a
Yeah.
butterfly. And that's where that metaphor falls down.
Well, I think there's another tenet out there that says the outer world is a reflection of our inner worlds, and
Oh,
that's the
yeah.
collective of humanity working together. So I do think that as each of us individually takes the time to find that inner peace, we'll just use that as something we're finding, inner peace, that will one day translate to outer peace when enough of us find that inner peace. And so we don't want to feel hopeless that we have to get other people to do this. You really,
You have to do it yourself.
who are listening.
You're the
Yes,
one. You're
you're
the
the
change.
one.
You're the change we've been looking for. I mean,
That's Jane Goodall, right? That's
yeah,
her
it's
claim
right
to
there.
fame.
And
Be the change.
and I'm adding something that I think is also Aquarian, that a major problem, even among the 10% we might be talking about, is how to get along with each other. That human beings still have this competitive drive. You see this in spiritual groups. You see it more than I do. I know Evan has told me about it, that you see this, oh, we're all so spiritual, but they're fighting each other for like a place in the organization or
Attention, power. Yeah.
attention and power. And we can't do that. And it's a contradiction in spiritual evolution that there isn't also interpersonal and psychological evolution. So this part that for me gets ignored, the interpersonal part of it. There's the self-evolution, there's recognizing we're all part of something, but there is recognizing that we have not developed a good enough technology to be able to get along with each other.
You think we need technology to get along with each other? What do you mean by that?
I use technology as a way of saying, figuring out what you got to do. Uh, for example, I might call making I statements a kind of technology.
Okay. I
That
see.
you're right to correct me on that one, but the
Tools,
tools,
methods,
inter
techniques.
interpersonal
Yeah.
tools. I didn't even like tools that much, and but whatever we call it, that's why I said technology because I'm
Yeah.
learning a lot about interpersonal relationships from getting to know Chat GPT very well because it's a mimic of human behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So I see how it behaves like to some degree other people. So I get to practice it. So that's why I used it. But the idea is, to me, is fundamental is that human beings, as you were mentioning, there's a lot of Leos around here. There's a lot of narcissism in this world. And I've got a chapter in the book I'm writing about global narcissism. The one example is we've talked about I know what's right, follow me, do what I am, and then you'll be fine, is one example. But there's plenty of other examples of that. And we can't do that. There's narcissistic Leo tends not to know the mind of the other person. And what I am emphasizing is as we become more Aquarian, we need to be able to know and be open and be curious about the mind of the person we're talking with.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I'm just having this kind of like, oh crap, this is what we're up to for the next 2000 years, dealing with, the whole versus the individual. It's the Star Trek. I'm such a Star Trek fan too. when Spock sacrificed himself for the good of the whole. Um, the good of the many outweighs the needs of the one. That was the phrase. And that is the lesson I think we're going to be learning here in the next 2000 years. So, wow. Okay. We figured it out, Bernie. So that's what we have to do is focus on other people. You just found it and not ourselves. Of course, we have to focus on ourselves to use the techniques that help us clear out our inner angst and all of that. But then we need to really focus on getting to know other people, treating other people as our equal. That's what Aquarian energy is. And when the in astrology, since that's the model we're using, you want to work with the influences that you have, not against them. And but this is going to be the opposite. I just learned about the opposition energy being a factor only recently. And so that's why I'm thinking, oh no, Aquarian means we have to deal with Leos. So that's the way it goes. The
Oh,
religious people, the religious folks had to deal with the scientists. There was no getting rid of them, right?
well,
So there's
that
value to all of us.
is, and there's something implied in what you're saying, and it's kind of synchronicity like, in that the people that we are around, the people who are attracted to us and to whom we are attracted, are partial mirrors of our own psyches.
Yes.
So we can learn by learning the mind of the other person, we end up learning more about ourselves. So interpersonal relationships become a way to psycho-spiritually evolve.
Yeah, and it's having compassion for them, understanding that everyone's on a different journey. We don't know that yesterday their uncle might have died, and we don't know, and they're behaving badly. And so we think they're rude, but no, they're really in grief. So we don't always know everything someone's going
We
through in
don't.
the moment. And so just assuming that, everyone should be treated kindly no matter what is a really good starting point. I think, when you talk about the future of humanity, because we have forgotten, we have the scientists who, were advocates of materialism means we are separate. We're not spiritual. We're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
physical. We're going to
yeah.
die and disappear. That was the opposite energy we've been dealing with. But now I think we are realizing, if you look at the astrology, that the humanity is what is most important. So discussing the future of humanity as we're entering the Aquarian age is perfectly appropriate that you have that concern, because I think that should, looking at it this way, be our number one concern. And that can be shown through acts of kindness, through acts of compassion, through loving your neighbor, instigating that golden rule. How would you want to be treated if your uncle just died? Maybe you want to have a smile instead of someone giving you a hard time. How do you want to be treated? And bring that to other people. That is what religion has taught us for the last 2000 years. And I like to think we don't forget our lessons, but we build on them. And so we're not leaving all of that behind. We now understand what religion taught us. Every religion has the golden rule in it to treat others as you would like to be treated. We should know that lesson by now. And this is what we bring into the Aquarian energies. And I think many, 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 many of us are completely wholly ready for this. Like you said, there are people who are looking to helping humanity's future, and they're focusing on these things. That is fabulous. And that kind of energy will help bring the others along as
Yes,
we move forward. So
yes.
bravo to anyone. I always express huge gratitude to anyone, whether I know them or not, when they take time to go within, to clear their emotional angst, to find that inner peace. This is what we have to do individually. Nobody is going to do that for you. And it's not easy for all of us. We have different traumas we've been through. Our own traumas always seem worse than everyone else's. Just know that. And but you can get through it. And when you do, you're helping yourself and you're helping everyone. That's the energy that I think we're in right now. I would say the Aquarian age is here, given our current situation. So
I believe Aquarian age is here as you're talking about it, and
well, and people are getting more spiritual and less religious. And that Pisces energy in my world is kind of a religious, sort of thing. And maybe we needed that, this set of morals that people could learn. And, there's pros and cons to religious organizations. So all of it can help us learn, though.
I, please comment, Karen, on the idea of the people who are around us are to some degree mirrors of our own psyche.
Yeah, this one's tricky. So once you learn it, it's kind of annoying, but anytime anytime you get upset about something, anytime you feel like you're being emotionally triggered or something is happening, it used to be, okay, you're still laughing. All right.
I mean, it's annoying, is right. That's why I'm laughing
It is
about.
annoying because what ends up happening is at first, say I'll say 30 years ago when I would have an emotional reaction, I always blamed the other person. That person caused me to feel this.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I learned no, 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 because that same behavior might not make another person upset, but it makes me upset. So who's got the problem? I have the problem. I'm the one who's reacting to someone else's behavior. And usually they say in psychology that you're reacting because that's a quality that you have that you don't like. That's why it's annoying because it forces you with this worldview to every time you get annoyed, think, okay, what is it about me that's annoying now? What? And then you focus on fixing your perception of that in yourself or whatever that belief in yourself, whatever it is. And then eventually you're not triggered by that person doing the same behavior anymore. You just brush it right off. It no longer bothers you. And I had to learn this, especially because I grew up with brothers and no sisters. And my family dynamic is very much one of teasing and making fun, all in good fun, of course.
Yeah, oh
As long
yeah,
as it's funny, it's okay, is my
yeah.
dad's motto.
Oh
And
wow.
so anyway, I grew up having to be triggered quite a lot by these boys bothering me and trying to get me to react. And so I fortunately learned early on that it was my reaction that was causing them to be that way. So it works in both ways. So,
How do you mean it works in both ways?
well, they wanted me to react that way, so they behaved a certain way, right? They wanted me to get upset,
Yeah.
and I get upset when they act that way because of a trigger in me. So sometimes people are behaving in a way to coerce that behavior out of you. Maybe it's the narcissists or, annoying brothers. That
That
makes
gets
sense.
that to me, yeah, that gets to me about energy, interpersonal energy. It's like uh, this cruelty that we're seeing rampant in the United States and around the world now
Mhm.
appears to be a form of energy that the person who's creating the cruelty in the minor ways that your brothers did, they like to get that energy. It feeds them in
Yes.
some way. What do you think about
Yes.
that?
Well, I mean, isn't that sadism or masochism? Which is it? Where it brings you pleasure to cause pain in another person.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Which one is that? Sadism or masochism?
Sadism.
Sadism. So I don't know. Do all these people have aspects of sadism in them, or are they just unable to feel? Do they want to feel the other person's pain, or are they just oblivious to it? I feel like some people don't understand compassion, don't understand how to feel the feelings. I think many people, not all, because I'm one of them, I'm a technical person, but a lot of people who enter the technical field aren't necessarily good at interacting with people, don't have the built-in kind of ways they have to learn compassion for other people. It's not automatic. And a lot of people go into technology. I'm being vastly, generalizing here, but when you think about people who are very technical doing programming stuff, they don't know how to get along with people. They don't even know how to feel what another person is feeling. And maybe that's part of what's going on is a wide swathe of people in the technology industry potentially don't have that ability to understand what their technology really is doing. They're just all about the data. And without the compassion and the feelings, you're leaving out humanity. That's what makes us human, not data, but our feelings. And so understanding our feelings, understanding how to regulate our emotions, why we're having them, where they're coming from, can be very helpful. When you have big reactive moments, it affects your physiology. And when you learn how to be calm in those moments, your physiology will thank you. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
You bring up the technology and the people in technology as a very important part of this because they're dominating our world and how we think. And there's a subset of particularly the ones who have money and who are having good lives with their money, who have an aversion to pessimism. They don't want to feel the pessimism that a lot of other people are feeling now in the world. And they will deny that there's anything wrong because
Mm.
they don't want to experience that negativity. They want everything to be positive. That idea of it's all good, it's all working out just the way it should, is a kind of a passivity to me of not noticing that a lot of things need to change instead of just letting it be.
Yeah, that's a good point. But then again, there's this thing that Eben always talks about, which is all is well. And I think that's a little different than what you're talking about, because I think what he would say is that whatever happens, we learn and grow from that, and we're all still okay. We're all still, made of love and connected. And when our bodies die, we remember all of that, and everything goes back to normal. But I think what you're talking, or to not normal, but to being spiritual. But what you're talking about is different, because I think those same people are potentially the materialists who don't think there's meaning and purpose to this world, who we just have one physical lifetime and then we're dead and we don't come back. It's a kind of a nihilistic worldview that we need to build ourselves out of, that materialist scientists created. People who don't, who make fun of anyone who talks about anything supernatural or spiritual at all. So I don't know if that's what you were referring to.
It is, and I'm glad you clarify what Evan means, that it will work out when we work it out, is what he's talking about. That
Yes.
there's a lot to learn, that this is a constant, to me, this has always been a school here, down here on our Earth, like a place to learn stuff. Earth University is what I've tended to call it. And if you're open to learning in the way Evan was just suggesting, it's part of what we need to be doing here. Now let's see if we can go in the the last 10 minutes or so back to astrology. We've done the age of Aquarius, that we're in Aquarius. We got to focus on humanity. We got to focus on each other. And we've talked somewhat, and I think very well, about what needs to happen with interpersonal as well as intrapersonal in ourselves, things to be able to keep evolving. And I'm wondering what else astrology might be able to tell us about ways out of this chaos, given the structures and inhibitions or limits of astrology for humanity right now.
You know, that's a, I'm not sure I can
Yeah,
sum that up really well, Bernie.
that's a
You're
hard question.
you're really looking for the answer to all of our problems. I know
Uh,
you
well,
are.
well,
That's your ultimate goal here.
let me be clearer about that. The
Okay.
answer to our ultimate problems is not this. It's not a thing. It's a process
Yes.
that I'm looking for, like guidelines for moving into the future, not what the future is going to be. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm not looking for certainty. I'm looking for things just like we just talked about with Evan saying that we got to keep things happen and then we learn from them. And that's the kind of process that I'm looking for, that maybe astrology can enlighten us about.
Yeah, one thing I like to look at in astrology is eclipses,
Yeah.
because eclipses are turning points. That's when things are going to shift. And I know the United States, we had a big eclipse because we were there in Texas. Was that last year or the year before? Uh, yeah, that was
I think it
2024.
was 2 years ago.
It's
Yeah,
2024. We all know what happened in 2024. So that
yes,
was a big turning point, and we chose a certain turning point.
we
Well,
did.
those turning point opportunities will come up again. And that's what I think we should be paying attention to. They may or may not be involved when an eclipse is coming over our country, but I'm thinking of our country right now in that particular eclipse. I will tell you that one eclipse happened in my life that I looked back on. I didn't know it was coming. And I had a career for 25 years. And I gave 3 months notice for this career I think like February or something. Anyway, my last day was June 3rd or something like that. I picked my last day 3 months in advance. And then that was it. My 25-year career was over, and I turned into a freelance web developer and then later an author and other things I never could have imagined. But what happened on that day was an eclipse, and it hit my chart in such a way that it was, I believe it was at 0 degrees Gemini, and 0 degrees Gemini on my chart is right where my midheaven is, which is the top of your chart. And this is your career. This is how the world sees you, your role in the world. And if I couldn't have picked a better day for the last day of my 25-year career than this huge turning point in my career and how the world views my role in it. That's different than your personality. So that's how astrology has helped me. So I don't know. I think when Rick Tarnas is on, these are going to be really great questions for him because he's well more aware of the transits that are coming and what opportunities we'll have within those transits. And, you know, these chaotic times are opportunities. I think you used that phrase earlier, and I think this is what we all need to remember. These are opportunities to make new choices in our lives, to make changes that maybe we have been resistant to understand that cycles are afoot. When you close one door, another door opens. Nothing's ever over. And I love right here, for some reason, this phrase is entering my mind that nobody gets out of here dead. Nobody is going to end their existence when their body dies. You'll still be around. And that may be a big shock to many people who don't have that in their belief system. It's not going to end. You will continue making choices, deciding what are you going to do next in the spiritual realm? Are you going to come back here? So nobody gets out of here dead. And so it's really great to make those good choices now about what we want our future to be. And I don't know what those choices are. I like to think it's about caring for other people and doing all of that, but it remains to be seen if that's what our collective world will go for. But I do remain optimistic, and that the vast majority of humans are born from incredibly good energy who want only the best for all of us here on Earth. And when we can tap into that energy of humanity, I mean, you see it in disasters. Here in the US, we have hurricanes. That's a common time to see it. Maybe it's a tornado, but as soon as that disaster is over, people are out there during the disaster, out there helping rescue people off of roofs, you know, rescue people from drowning, all of those things that we just can't help ourselves from doing. We run and pull someone out of a burning car. This is humanity. This is what we do. We care for each other.
Yes. And my opinion is that there are some people who don't care. And as we talked about earlier, there's going to be a percentage of humanity that's going to be who we have to hopefully rely on to make the transformation that might help other people make the transformation, which is the way human beings operate. They're copycats. They follow what other people do. If it's really something everybody's doing, well, I got to do it too. And what I get
Especially
from
if it feels good. So
feels good is so important.
helping people feels good.
If you
So
help him, what I'm getting from our conversation as we come to the end, Karen, is from astrology and the future of humanity, is that let's be on the lookout for those transition times. That Pluto return is one huge example of that, but there are smaller ones, just like your uh, transition from your previous 25-year career to who knows what at the time. You went through that transition. So what I'm getting from this is astrology can alert us to those times when transition is more feasible, more likely, more ready to have happen. So that if we can do that, timing is everything, using astrology to be able to make some guess about now's the time to act as this, let's say, 10% of humanity gathers together to make decisions. That is a wonderful contribution that astrology can make to the subset of humanity that is going to choose.
It's true. And in China, they're very serious about their astrology,
They are.
so much so that they hire astrologers to pick what day they're going to get married or what day they're going to start their new business. Very important in China, astrology. Different, little bit different form of astrology, but it still seems to work.
Well, the science is necessary when you say it still seems to work. We have to be able to. Jung tried to do that with marriages, and yeah, he didn't quite make it. But the ability, the technology to do those analyses weren't there. There is something to astrology, as you very well know. And there's too much detail in astrology from my perspective, which you can get caught up in,
Hmm.
although it may be useful, as in any profession. When I started looking at psychoanalysis, which has some benefit, they write about stuff I can't understand. The professional is to write stuff that is incomprehensible to anybody outside of it. But when you come to the intermediate place. I think what you are talking about is so valuable here that we come to transition points that astrology can help us identify. And those are points at which the collective human organism, the 10% who are trying to do something for the future, might then begin to act.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And really, just taking time to go within, to know yourself. This is so, so critical. And finding a way to reach out to others, be kind, all of this is it doesn't matter what time it is. You
Those
can
are
just,
those are
yeah,
fundamentals.
those are fundamentals.
Those are
Just,
fundamental.
yeah,
And those are what I keep looking for is those are the processes that I'm looking for, not the answer,
yeah.
but the process. And what I'm writing about defines some of those things a little more clearly than I knew about this interpersonalness and this psychological developmentness. People get all caught up in all kinds of details about each one of those, and
Well,
it has to be clarified.
yeah, and in terms of timing, I think I just thought of an idea. If, the moon has a cycle every single month, it's going around and there's a new moon and there's a full moon. And new moon energies, if you want to tap into the, collective psychic energy of the world, the new moon energy is when you want to focus on new projects. And the full moon energy is when you want to let go of things that no longer serve you. So that's one simple way to be paying attention to timing and transitions. Don't start new projects unless it's near the full moon, is one way to look at it. Use the energy of the earth. I mean, farmers did this for forever. They still do it. Plant their seeds according to the moon, and it changes how their produce is grown. And so we can all do this. Tap into those energies. Very easy to follow the moon cycle. That's a form of astrology. Very simple.
Very simple and very basic. And the moon was just beautiful at 5 a.m. this morning. It's just go out and feel it, and you can get a sense there's something going on.
We're in full moon energy, the end of a full moon, I think. Yeah. Very, very powerful if you tune into it.
Well, Karen, is there anything more you'd like to be able to say before we end?
Thank you, Bernie, for doing what you do and bringing all of this interesting information and connections that you make and all the people that you bring on. It's really a wonderful service that you bring to humanity.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.